Today's show is brought to you by New Works Plumbing of Sacramento. Locally owned for over 20 years, New Works has a fix for you. For your plumbing needs and repairs, just go to sacserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. And remember, if you have an emergency in the middle of the night, no problem. They'll be there with their 24/7 service. That's New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you. My guest I have known for a long time, and he is not only one of the best sports broadcasters in the business, plain and simple, he's just one of the best guys in the business. We welcome Iron Eagle to the program. And you got your hair cut just to come on with me? You know, you're unbelievable.
I bathed for you. I've cut my hair for you. Think about what I've done just to make sure this was going to be smooth. And by the way, there's the audio portion, I know, but it's great to see you, Grant.
Man,
Truly,
it is so awesome. It's so, all right. I want to make sure that I had my information correct. When you did the Kings Warriors playoff game this past April in Sacramento, that was your first time in the new building?
It was.
Wow.
It's all circumstantial, as you know. When you're putting together your broadcast year, it's a jigsaw puzzle. And you just want to make sure the pieces fit together. You're compartmentalizing between NBA, NFL, college basketball, radio, TV, just trying to make it all work. And also, by the way, and you lived this for many years, not having one job affect the other, where you're doing your job and doing it well, and then separating and then doing the other job. For whatever reason, just the way the schedule always worked out, and truth be told, how tough it might be to get in and out of Sacramento to be able to put that as part of another trip. I just had never been to the new arena. I was blown away. Obviously, the ambiance was off the charts. The game was great. The fans were incredible, but the arena is top notch. It's a special place.
It is special. I think it's as good as any in the league. So I've got to ask you, how would you compare that experience to what it was like when you were at Arco Arena?
You know, it's funny with Arco, you and I spent so much time together, and all my years going there, I really enjoyed my experience there. But it was based more not on the competition per se. There were a few years where the Nets and Kings were both good, not a whole lot of crossover time.
Yeah.
But the fans, the people that you would see, the passion, and the way that we were situated there, you could have conversations with fans. They were literally right behind you or just to the side of you. My experience doing the national game at the new spot, you're jammed in right as the court opens a bit for the front row. So we have ownership there. We have 50 Cent there. We have Floyd Mayweather there. The fact that Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent actually talked, I think Vivek forced them to take a picture together, because I don't believe those two get along. I didn't get into it on the TNT broadcast, but I do have some pop culture knowledge. So I can't even say that it was a normal experience for me, because I was on the other side. I wasn't getting the experience that I would normally get, like I got at Arco, of being a local broadcaster and going to the press room and chatting up with other media members. So I want to reserve judgment until I get there as a local broadcaster one day, so I can really go apples to apples.
And you don't have a big ego. You don't go around patting yourself on the back, but you received the highest honor that you can receive for someone in your profession, the National Sportscaster of the Year. What did that mean to you?
Meant a lot. I appreciate you even bringing it up, Grant. There was a ceremony down in North Carolina, Winston-Salem, where state winners for the media side on radio, TV, and the print side all were honored. Hall of Famers were honored. National Sports Writers of the Year honored. And it really was a special night. Not because of the trophy or the award, but it struck me in the moment that everybody that was there and the people that I knew that I have pre-existing relationships with, they were there with ease in mind, not under some kind of pressure to hit a deadline or to make charts or to interview someone to get information for their next broadcast.
Hmm.
Everybody was there to chill. And it's one of the first events that I can remember. I had nothing coming up. It was early in the summer, so I was completely clean for the next month where I didn't have to think about anything. And it really changed the whole vibe of the event, at least from my perspective. Everybody could be their
Yep.
true, authentic self, and there was no pretense and there was no edginess or angst associated to it. The bigger picture of it, of course, when your peers vote you in this category, that's the ultimate honor because Grant, you know, and I know what it takes to do this.
Mm,
And while we don't often share what it's like to make the sausage behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that goes into it to do it
sure is.
well and to be professional. So when those that know really know and have the insight, I think it adds a real special meaning to the whole event.
You've come a long way from Forest Hills High School, my friend.
Ranger Pride citywide, Forest Hills High School,
Yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel, Michael Landon, Dick Stockton. I
Bert
can go
Napier.
on and on,
My
Grant.
father, Bert Napier, went to Forest Hills
Bert
High School.
Napier. Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman. I got to do the math.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You were talking about what goes into your job and what to me is so different from when you began and when I began to now is that we are under such a microscope now because of social media and all the radio TV critics. I mean, it's a completely different world than it was 20 years ago, isn't it?
It is, and I would take it even in another direction with that as the general background of what's changed. I think the fans are more informed than ever
No
before.
question.
So you started with the Kings before I started with the Nets. I was 1994. So this is going to be my 30th year doing Nets games in some form. Back
Hmm.
then, you were just looking for shreds of information, a media guide, the notes, talking to the opposing broadcaster, making phone calls during the week, talking to an assistant coach, a scout, anywhere you could get a morsel, a nugget of knowledge, you would take it and put it on your board or use it in the broadcast. And now there's so much information that's out there that the fans are also privy to. So the goal now is to get stuff that isn't as available. And can you get a
Hmm.
little more inside? And I think the checks and balances of this have also changed where the fans know their stuff. So maybe something that you would float out there in 94, 95, 96, not going to fly in 2023 because people know the deal. They're following the team as closely as you are, and it's your job
That's
to
right.
follow the team. That's the
That's right.
part that has really struck me. I'll have conversations with net fans, and I'll think to myself, "Man, you know a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do during the week?" Like, "Oh, I work in construction." I'm like, "More power to you, man. That's amazing
Yeah.
that you have ensconced yourself in the." And by the way, it goes for the same deal in the NFL. Specific teams. If I'm doing Baltimore and the Chargers, I know going into that week, I'm going to have millions of experts watching the game that follow the
Yep.
Ravens every move, that follow the Chargers every transaction, every storyline, every narrative. So everything you said is true. And then add this other layer, not just what you're seeing on social media, but in real life and TV, radio critics, Twitter, it's instant. It's very
Yep.
much in the moment. And it has changed our industry, no doubt.
I love talking to you about your career. I actually love talking to people about their career because I think you would agree. If you took 50 of us and put us in a room around a big table and you
Yeah.
said, "Hey, how did you begin your career?" You'd probably hear 50 different stories. Other
Well,
than
you
a
might only hear one, Grant, because broadcasters talk a lot, and then we all have to leave. You say, "Well, what about the 49 other guys? I'd like to hear from them." No, no, no. Let me tell you about me.
That is so true. But other than a family member, who's had the biggest impact on your career?
From a, I'm going to pay attention to what this person is doing on the air, how they conduct themselves, how they approach the job. Marv Albert was clearly the person that I emulated most. He was doing the Knicks, he was doing the Rangers, he was doing local news,
Yep.
he was doing it all. And I just thought to myself, the way he does it,
Hmm.
I believed was the right way. Information, fun, light moments, serious when necessary, punch it on big calls. That was my interpretation of what this job was supposed to be. Now, as you get older, I'm talking about when I was 8, 9, 10 years
Yep.
old.
Yep.
You get older and you start to realize, wait, there are other ways to do this. And other people have different perspectives and different approaches. And I did appreciate the way Al Michaels called the game and the way Vern Lundquist called the game. Those two names in particular stuck with me, and just how they approached the job. Vern, I just thought was so affable, and you could feel that through the
Hmm.
screen. And it sounded like he wanted to be there. And that resonated with me. If you're doing this job, it better sound like you want to be there. And by the way, not just sound like it, you've got to actually feel it. You want to
Hmm.
be there. That's where you want to be. That's the most important thing happening on that day when you're calling the job. Al Michaels, just a command, a mastery of the language, of the moment, understanding the situation, and then delivering when the moment came, and having the right word and the right inflection. Behind the scenes, there are so many people, Grant, you know, and
Mm.
you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
People that trusted you, people that gave you a chance when maybe you hadn't earned quite that chance yet. Someone that believed in you. People you work with, you and Jerry for so many
Hmm.
years. That's true friendship. That's not
No
just a
question.
partnership. You go on the air. For me and Bill Raftery, it's a different level when we get on the air, because there's a shared experience that we've had as friends, as close friends, that you can't simulate. I really pride myself on finding commonality with analysts and putting them in a position to succeed. And I realized pretty early in my career that if you looked at the broadcast as we and not me, that you'd probably have success, because most people watching and listening, they want to either like both of you or neither of you.
That's
They
right.
don't want to they don't want to go with the, I like him, I don't like him, I like her, I could do without her. They have an opinion on you as a team. So that became a very big point of emphasis for me, of find a way to make us work when we're doing the game together.
Well, you went from many years having Dan Fouts next to you, and
Yeah.
then a man that I've never heard anyone say a bad word about Charles Davis. I put
Agreed.
him up here on my
Agreed.
list of great people. But the year that you and Charles started working together was the year of the pandemic, so you couldn't have face-to-face meetings,
Yeah.
and so that was a totally different situation for you to all of a sudden have a new partner, mesh, have everyone think you've been working together for years. In retrospect, how challenging of a process was that for you?
Grant, I look back on that time, and what I remember most about that whole stretch, pandemic hits, announcement comes out that I'll have a new partner. I'd worked with Dan for 10 years. Dan and I are very close friends. He is a great guy, not a good guy, a
Mhm.
great guy. So that was hard. It's your friend that's no longer going to
Sure.
be with you, not just on the air, but off the air. The dinners, the meetings, the car rides, the laughs. And now Charles is coming in. Charles and I knew each other by maybe two meetings, two in person, shake your hand, talk for 5 minutes. So that whole stretch, which was odd for everybody, as we know, we ended up doing multiple Zooms over the course of that 5-month period in between when the pandemic hit and when the season was going to start. And I'm not talking about, oh, we did 2 Zooms to get to, no, 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 no. We did 9 Zooms,
Right.
and we made it a point not to even talk football, to get to know one another as people. And that put us in a position to hit the ground running week 1. We did Cleveland at Baltimore. We had plexiglass between us. We had to sit 10 feet apart. Those were the CBS rules and whatever the rules were of any company at that point, you had to abide by. And we were not allowed to travel in the same car together to the stadium as to avoid close contact. We were not allowed to share a meal together. We did not have one in-person production meeting that entire season. It was all done via the internet. And yet I felt so comfortable when we hit the ground running that it was seamless. And it felt like we had been friends for 20 years. And a lot of that has to do with him.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think some of it has to do with me and the fact that we just went in with the right attitude. But I will say the first game that we did, Cleveland at Baltimore, second possession of the day, Lamar Jackson is running to his left. And Charles had been making a point about something, and he had turned to me to make that point. And I gave him eye contact in return. Again, first time we're working together, never discussed any of this. I want to give him a little of that instant feedback, a nod, a grin. And I turned back around and I missed a portion of Lamar's play, but I catch the back end. He pitches it to Mark Ingram. Ingram actually coughs up the football, jumps on it, and I make the call. And I think to myself, man, I'm a hero. People at home have no idea that I didn't see what happened. For me to catch up that quickly and be on top of it and make it feel very smooth. Yeah, I'm in mid-season form, and this is the first quarter of game 1. Well, they rolled a replay, and Lamar Jackson had a ridiculous move initially that I never saw because I had made eye contact with Charles. And I see it on the replay, and the first thing that hits me is, oh my goodness, I have butchered this highlight. This should have been a big, if it's a touchdown, it's a complete butcher job. And it struck me in 2 ways. First, I said to Charles when we went to break, I go, hey, Charles, no offense, I can't give you eye contact. I've got to keep my eye. He goes, oh, no problem, no problem. So that was the first thing. The second thing, there were no fans in the stadium. And then I realized, and even after doing this job for so many years, that point was so pronounced to me, the fans would have saved me in that moment. The reaction of the fans, if I had missed it in real time, the crowd gasping, because that's what they would have done with this move, would have forced me to change my inflection. And I no longer had that compass. And that was the whole year. I didn't realize how much of a track the fans provided for me, whether it's NFL, NBA, Grant, like you look down at your notes, you look up.
Yep.
And now you're playing catch up in real time. And that was eye-opening for me. So it was a learning moment for me. And then it allowed me to communicate with Charles through the plexiglass, like, hey, dude, I'm not going to be able to do that today. And I'm going to have to take a wait and see attitude for the whole year of how much I can give you. So that was the thing that strikes me from our first game. It's been a joy. He is so prepared. He is so easy to work with. He is so into it. He's into it. He wants to be there. And you can tell from the second that we get on the air, he pops.
And he is so funny. He's got some of the great stories. I used to have a weekly show with him in Sacramento for years. And, he tells the story once about Toot Shores, across from the garden. He's like, yeah, he goes, Grant, you've heard about Toot Shores. I'm like, yeah, of course. He goes, well, there's a guy in there from Cleveland and he's sitting at the bar and he's having a steak. And the manager walks over to him and goes, sir, how's your steak today? Are you enjoying it? And he goes, yeah, it's really good. But gee, I'm from Cleveland. It's $10 more here than it is in Cleveland. He goes, sir, when you have your steak in Cleveland and you wake up in the morning, you're still in Cleveland. Have a nice night. you know, but Charles, I love that man. He's just amazing. You talk about
Agreed.
something, and we in this profession, we're judged by how we call the big moments, and we
Yeah.
never know when those moments are going to occur. And that's what people remember you by, and the highlights are played over now on YouTube and everywhere else, and they're there forever. But me personally, Ian, when I made a mistake at any point during the game, like you were just referring to, or something else, that used to eat at me.
Yeah.
And I used to go home and I just could not wait until my next telecast or my next broadcast or whatever the case may be. Most people that watch you, if you make a mistake, they don't even know. You know. Does that eat at you?
Not anymore, but there was a time where it did, very similar to you. I think it's a perfectionist mentality, which
Mm-hmm.
is a blessing and a curse, because in our job, as you know, you can't be right 60% of the time. You got to be close to 100%.
Yep.
When you're calling a play, you got to get the names right. You got to get the result right. You can't just throw stats out there hoping they're right. They have to be correct. When you read the screen, you have to read it correctly. I had a thing when I started at FAN Radio doing updates. I was producer, intern to start, producer, eventually did updates, did talk shows. So we're talking about the early 90s.
Yep.
And the station was really coming into its own at that point. The emergence of sports radio in general, but of WFAN as a behemoth in the market. I could feel it. I could feel how things were shifting in the New York media based on this radio station. And I made a pact with myself when I started doing updates that I would not perfumfer a word, stumble over any of it. And I lived by that. And if I had one stumble, one pause, one moment, it ate away at me. So the positive of that is what? Made me better. I set a bar very high
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to reach that bar every time. It was a 90-second update, but I treated it like it was the most important thing ever. The negative part is we all perfunctor and have a moment or a slip of the tongue.
Absolutely. No question.
It happens. It happens. So I
Sure.
built up in my head that that was not something that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not healthy either. So as you start doing talk shows, I moved my way into play-by-play. I had the same mentality, but I've allowed a longer leash now. And I recognize I'm human and older and things happen. You nailed it though, Grant. The idea most of the time is that most people wouldn't even catch it. But I
No.
remember, I don't know, maybe 4 years into my tenure at CBS, somewhere along the line, you are your hardest critic. There's nobody out there. Your boss, the
Correct.
president of the network, the president of the team, the owner, no one's going to be tougher on you than you. And we would get calls occasionally, hey, you guys had a great show. Ian, at the end, you nailed that final call. Great broadcast. And then I would think to myself, I missed like 5 things in that broadcast. They didn't bring it up, but I knew it could be better. And they judged it from the final call. Great call at the end. If the opposite were true, which has happened, by the way, where I've felt like I've had a really good broadcast and maybe not the best final call in the big moment, does that negate the day? Was it a bad day? In our terms, it was, because that biggest moment didn't go the way that you thought it would. So you've got to find the balance in both. And I don't beat myself up anymore over stuff like that. Grant, for many years, I know this, you would get young broadcasters reaching out to you.
Sure.
And they'd say, can I send you some clips? We'd say, of course, please. Yeah, I'd be more than happy to listen, give you some feedback.
Yeah.
And many of them would reach out to me and then they'd say, "Hey, look, just so you know, I really like what I did from the 2 minute mark to the 4:18 mark." I go, "Oh, okay, great." I said, "But you understand, eventually, you have to be okay with all of it.
Yeah.
It can't just be, I like what I did on this one possession or this one. You have to get to the point of consistency in this job that you're comfortable when someone turns on the TV. It doesn't matter what point of the game it is, it doesn't matter what the situation is. If you're coming up with reasons, oh, no, 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 what happened there? You're done.
Sure.
You're
Yeah.
done. You got to
Great
be
point.
confident with all of it.
Growing up on Long Island, my dad had season tickets to both the Jets and the Giants, and we were at an NFL game every week. The Jets fans at Shea Stadium
Amazing.
hated me because one week I'd be rooting for the Bills, 2 weeks later I'd be rooting for the Colts. Because you know me, I love the Giants and hated the Jets. But I watched Joe Namath, and I was there through that era, and I remember as a 10-year-old what that was like when the Jets were kings of New York. You do the Jets preseason games, you live in the area. If two questions here. When's the last time there was this much buzz around the Jets? And if Aaron Rodgers could go into that franchise and win a Super Bowl, would he be up there with Joe Namath, the Derek Jeters? You know who I mean, would he
Yeah.
be at that level of New York sports lore?
Yes, I think he would, considering the fact this franchise hasn't won a Super Bowl since the 1968 season. They've had one 4,000-yard passer in their franchise's history. It was Joe Namath. It wasn't even that Super Bowl year. It was the year before that. And that was in 14 games, by the way. So that's the era that you're now discussing when
Mm-hmm.
Namath was just lighting it up. And he was given the green light to do so. We don't know in this era how an offensive coordinator would handle a talent like Joe Namath. A smart one would figure out a way to harness it and make it work. My sense is, this area really well. The Jets are always striving for relevance. That is the word that they constantly look towards, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Whoever the ownership group has been, whoever the behind the scenes management has been, it doesn't matter. They want to be relevant. And part of
Mm-hmm.
that has to be part of being the little brother. You're not the Giants. The Giants have the history. The Giants have more rings. The Giants have a certain type of fan base that has been passed on generation to generation to generation. Jets have a different background. And with that said, they're striving for something that has been so elusive to them. If Aaron Rodgers can help them get there, Grant,
Yeah.
I think he is going to be placed in that certain pantheon of New York athletes. Mark Messier, most of his career was in Edmonton before ever coming to New York. He delivered with the Rangers, and he can do no wrong in New York because he lived up to his word that this team
Mm-hmm.
was going to win a championship, and he ended what we knew to be the longest streak of heartache in
That's
hockey.
right. That's right.
So the last thing that I'll mention in regards to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets having just done their preseason game last week, Grant, we did a production meeting with Rodgers. I've been doing production meetings now for 26 years. For those who don't know, production meetings, you sit down with a player. There's no camera, there's no microphone. You usually get 10, 12 minutes with the player. You jot down some notes, you try to use it on the air. But I can't say it's off the record. It's on the record, but it's a little bit of a looser format. I would say the meeting we had with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not saying this to try to pump it up in any way. I'm saying it because it's authentic and true. It was a top 5 production meeting interview that I've had in my career.
Wow.
And that was because of him. He was so open. He was so direct and loose and honest. And that's a pretty consistent vibe that they've had throughout this training camp. He's very at ease and comfortable, and his aura is such. It's rubbing off on the team. Now they have to actually go out and play meaningful games at some point, Grant, and things can change in a hurry, as we know. That those are long weeks in the NFL. If you lose,
Oh boy.
that's a long week. So maybe if we talk again in week 7, week 9, week 14, things will be completely different. Right now, it's gone exactly as they hoped it would. He has been everything that they wanted him to be, and then some.
Final subject for you, and that's your son Noah. And when Noah was at Syracuse, he reached out to me once and asked me to come on his show that he was co-hosting with
That's
somebody
right.
else.
That's right.
And even back then, I remember at the end of the interview, because I worked at the campus station at Bowling Green,
Yeah.
and I was saying to myself, man, that sure as hell wasn't me back then. I mean, Noah's light years of where I was.
Me too. Ditto. Ditto.
And listen, I know he's your son, and I get all of
Yeah.
that. But are you blown away at how good he's become so quickly and how he's ascended? And I know there were people, oh, well, gee, Ian's father. This is a young man with immense talent. You sit back sometimes and just go, oh my God.
Yes, I do.
Don't let him see this.
First, this is the kind of person you are as well. You did that interview, and then I could probably find the text on our chain. And you texted immediately afterwards and said, Ian, I'm not just saying this because I like you and he's your kid, but I was blown away by your son and how he handled himself.
Yep.
And that, trust me, means the world. The funny part, we're driving up to Syracuse, taking Noah to school. We've been through now 2 years of trying to figure out what's the best fit. Noah went to the West Coast. He visited UCLA and USC, went down south. He visited Miami, visited Maryland. So he had a bunch of choices and possibilities. And he chose Syracuse, which was not necessarily the easy road because you got to deal with some stuff. Your dad went there, and now there'll be people that associate him with me, and you just don't know. It wasn't the simple path for him. He chose that, and he felt most comfortable there. But we're driving up. You drop him off. You do all the things you do when you drop your kid off. You go to Bed Bath and Beyond, RIP, no longer in existence. Hard to believe that they couldn't make it just from college visits alone. But we're ready. We do the hugs. Maybe there's some tears. We send him on his way to his dorm, and now we pull away from Brewster Boland in Syracuse. You make a right, you make a left at the light, you hit Route 81, and we're about 10 minutes into the drive home after the drop-off, and my wife, Elisa, turns to me. He's there to be a broadcaster. This is what he wants. And she says, are we sure he can do this? Like, will he be any good? And I said, I don't know. That's the part that we don't know. That's part of the mystery. And fortunately, he did have an aptitude for it and an ability for it. And he paid attention. He truly took it all in. So some of it is osmosis, and then a lot of it is just natural talent and then opportunities, taking advantage of them. And fortunately, more than anything else, Grant, I know this means a lot to you in regards to your own sons. He's a good guy.
That's right. That's right.
In this business,
oh boy,
that's a big part of it. Like you should be easy to work with. You should be a good teammate. You should be all those things in order to have a long and successful career. People should want to walk into a room, see you there, and be excited to talk to you because they know it's going to be a positive experience.
I'm so happy you said that. And I don't say this to embarrass you, but we are in the same circles pretty much. And I've never, and I really mean this, I've never heard anyone say anything bad about you at any point in time. Not once. Never. And you were put up here at a level that I think we can all aspire to be, because as you said, you're on top shelf, and you're going to be doing the Final Four this year, taking over for Jim Nance, and among everything else. And I say this, I learned this from Chick Hearn when I first did the Lakers Kings game in 1988 at the Forum. You remember upstairs at the Forum, and
Oh yeah.
Chick walked up to me. I had to do my radio show at 4 in the afternoon. Chick was already there for a 7:30 game, and Chick walked right up to me, and he said, "Hey, how are you? I'm Chick Kern," and I introduced myself. And I'll never forget, he said, "Listen, you are so welcome here. We are happy to have you. And if there's
Yeah.
anything you need, speak up." And after the game, I remember Chick in the area that we were broadcasting up top, hanging around to take pictures with a real camera, with with signing everything.
Yeah.
And I sat there, and that is a scene that has always stayed with me. And when he used to come to Arco, and the amount of Laker fans that would be waiting for him to sign off, and he seemed to have time for everyone. And that always resonated with me. I'm like, wow, that is Chick Hearn that
Yeah.
is doing that. And it's amazing what stands out. You know, you talk about young broadcasters sending you work. I sent a cassette to Marv Albert when I was in 8th grade. And Marv sent me back. I still have it on the WNBC TV Channel 4. Back then on the teleprompter, the font was a lot bigger. And
Yeah.
Marv sent me on the teleprompter font that I still have. And that meant the world to me. But it also, when I got into this business, made me realize that, hey, you need to pass it forward. You need to pass it on. And I know you do that. But the fact that you do so much, you know, you do the Thursday night package Sunday, you do the Nets, you do college basketball, but you seem to have time for everyone the way Chick did and others. And I just got to tell you, and I'm not saying this to be corny, I have admired you for the way you handle yourself at the very top of the shelf. And I just want to say, man, it means the world to me for our friendship, but how professional you are in what you do. Hats off to you.
Oh, Grant, that means so much to me. I'm just waiting for the last part. You're such a prick. Why are you such a prick? No.
Well, you know, I was
with
gonna
everything
go
I
there,
said about
but
it, why are you still such a no?
yeah.
It's really the most important part of all of it. And you said it, not to be corny, but my dad, I learned it from him. Truly,
Amen.
he just made people's days brighter by being kind to them, by having interest in them, by looking
Yep.
them in the eye, by knowing their name or their background. Look, we all navigate our way through life. And I'm sure for so many years at Arco, you got to know the security guards and you got to know the support staff. That is what this job is all about. It's
That's right.
not just about doing the games. It's about the people you collect along the way and the relationships that are formed. Some of my closest friends are people that I didn't know until I was 40 years old, because you get put in situations where you travel with people, football crew, you're 3 days a week. You're with them Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Mm.
It's 3 days. You can't fake that. That's 3 of the 7 days you're going to be
That's
with
right.
this person. You're going to be talking about the show and about life and about each other's lives and kids and highs and lows. It's all part of it. And I think also the other part, Grant, you know this, you are a product of all of your experiences
That's
in
right.
life. And there are ways to synthesize that in a positive fashion to bring an upbeat way of approaching life, or you can be the person that just complains about everything. And we all know someone like that. They're walking down the hallway towards you and you know it, 3, 2, 1, they're going to bitch about something. And that's just how it
That's right.
is. I was not going to be that person in life. I'm never going to be that person in life. I just try to put good in the world, try to put good in the world.
Well, you are so generous with your time. Week 1, I think you've got Cincinnati and Cleveland, correct?
I do. The question is, Joe Burrow going to be
I know.
there? And that is going to determine a lot of what we do in terms of our coverage. But yeah, big storylines with Cincinnati. Are they a team that can get over the hump and win the whole thing? Cleveland, are they ready to take the next step? Has Deshaun Watson gotten the rust off? Everything that's gone on with him in that city, can he emerge as someone that people root for? Legitimate question marks.
Mm,
Week 1 in the NFL, Grant, I know you go gaga over the NFL. You're a
I
Giant
do.
fan,
Yep.
true and true, but you've been on the West Coast a long time. So
Mhm.
you develop relationships with people on the Raiders, having called those games in the
That's right.
preseason. And you end up oftentimes rooting for people you've met, people that you hope can do well in their life. So it may not even be a specific team, but it's for an individual that you just have a really nice relationship with, and you want it to go well for them. So that's always part of the big picture for me in the NFL every year. There's so many moving pieces, moving parts, but it's a wild ride. It's the best reality show out
Yep.
there because we have no idea how this thing is going to turn out.
30 seconds. You'll get a kick out of this. So when I did the Raiders for 5 years in the preseason, we had to wear the Raider polos,
Yep.
right, with the logo, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, no. So what I did is I had a New York Giants T-shirt that I cut low around the neck and my sleeves, and I put it under my polo shirt so that the Giants logo was closest to my heart and not the Raiders. That's how I did the games for 5 years.
You are a true fanatic. Okay. Let's not forget the origin of the word fan. You are a legitimate
Yeah,
fanatic. And that's also what makes it great. That's why we live
yeah.
and die with this stuff. And it's also why you have broadcast with so much passion, because you have the capacity for it. There has to be a part of your brain that can go to that place, that
That's
can
right.
feel it, that can feel the visceral part of sports and not just be a narrator of what's happening, but someone that can be a true conduit. And that's why you've been so good at this for so
Thank you.
long, because you feel it. You feel what that is supposed to feel like, even from a fan's perspective.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great season, and hopefully we can catch up in person in the not too distant future. All the best, Diane.
Thank you, Grant. Good hair day, so I feel good about the appearance.
Look at us.
Got it.
Look at us.
Got it chopped
We
off.
both got a cut. You know, we're good. So it's all
Exactly.
good. All
Hey,
right.
we can talk about hair. There are a lot out there that can't even have this conversation. So we're ahead of the game already.
All
Great
right.
seeing
Take
you,
care,
bud.
buddy.
Love you. Talk
Love
to you
you too.
soon.
All right.
All right,
See
man.
you. That's great, Iron Eagle. Oh my gosh. And we're also brought to you by Bennett's Restaurants. Don't forget Bennett's West Side Grill. Yes, in Rockland at the Blue Oaks Town Center. Go to Bennett'sRestaurants.com. That's Bennett'sRestaurants.com for their full menu and everything else. Prime seafood and steaks at Bennett's. I am back tonight, 7 o'clock right here, my open forum Q&A. Thanks for joining us. Have yourself a great day. So long, everybody.